During the Great Depression, a single dollar could decide whether a family ate or went to bed hungry. These meals were not trends, and they were not comfort food. They were survival. Every dish in this video cost almost nothing, yet it kept millions of Americans alive when work vanished and cupboards emptied. If you want to understand how ordinary families endured the hardest years in American history, you need to see what they ate when there was no other choice. Depression meals, when money vanished. The kitchen smelled of flour and silence. No sizzling pans, no bubbling soups, only the careful shuffling of coins and the quiet scraping of empty tins. During the Great Depression, a single dollar could mean dinner or another night of hunger. Families did not ask what they wanted to eat, they asked what they could afford. And in many homes, the answer was frighteningly little. In the early 1930s, Americans everywhere learned the art of survival through food. Depression bread became a constant, dense, pale, made from flour and water, sometimes with a pinch of salt. Yeast was a luxury. One loaf might feed a family for days, sliced thin and savored with caution. Cornmeal mush joined the table as another staple. Simple, filling, and unadorned, it became a silent hero of breakfast, lunch, and dinner alike. Potato peel soup emerged from necessity rather than invention. Families boiled every scrap, leaving nothing to waste. Every peel, every discarded piece of vegetable became sustenance, a reminder that scarcity demanded creativity. Yet these meals carried more than nutrition, they carried care. A mother would watch her children eat first, leaving herself less, ensuring they felt full. Kitchens became stages of resilience, where sacrifice and patience were the secret ingredients. Eating these dishes was not about pleasure but about keeping loved ones alive, about preserving a fragile sense of normalcy in a world that had gone suddenly harsh and uncertain. These simple dishes may seem strange to modern eyes, but they shaped generations. They taught thrift, patience, and quiet endurance. The smells, the textures, the memories linger long after the meals are gone. This is only the beginning of our journey into America's Depression-era kitchens. On America's Lost Recipes, we remember not just what people ate, but how they lived, survived, and quietly thrived in the hardest years of American history. Stretching a single potato. The potato was more than a vegetable during the Great Depression. It was hope pressed into a firm, modest shape, a blank canvas for families trying to survive. When meat was scarce and flour reserved for bread, the potato became the star of the table. It could be baked, boiled, mashed, or stretched into pancakes, each meal simple, humble, and life-sustaining. In homes across America, families discovered that a single potato could feed multiple people if used wisely. Potato peel soup, which had begun as a last resort dish, continued to appear on tables, simmering slowly over coal stoves. Every scrap counted. Potato pancakes, made from grated spuds and a pinch of flour, transformed an ordinary meal into something more substantial. Sometimes they were fried, sometimes baked, but always carefully portioned. Boiled potatoes seasoned lightly with salt became dinner itself, eaten slowly to make the meager supply last. These meals were never about indulgence. They were about endurance. Mothers would serve children first, taking smaller portions themselves. Fathers often returned from work, exhausted and hungry, to find their families already nourished. Even when the kitchen smelled plain and the food was unadorned, there was pride in knowing that no one went without. Each potato carried patience, care, and quiet ingenuity, demonstrating how a single ingredient could hold a household together. The simplicity of these meals left a lasting impression. They became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that survival was an art. The flavors, textures, and routines forged during these years would be remembered for generations. As we continue exploring Depression-era kitchens, these humble potato dishes teach more than sustenance. They teach resourcefulness, family devotion, and the power of making do. On America's Lost Recipes, we honor the meals that fed America when money ran out, and the courage behind every modest plate. Meat became a memory. During the hardest years of the Great Depression, meat was a luxury few could afford. Kitchens that once smelled of roasting chicken or simmering beef now relied on imagination and ingenuity. Families learned to stretch what little protein they had, transforming scraps and substitutes into meals that filled stomachs and eased worry. Gravy without meat became a quiet hero of these households. Flour, water, and a bit of fat, simmered slowly, created a warm, thick sauce. It was poured over bread or potatoes, and suddenly, the meal felt complete. Fathers returned home from work, weary and hungry, yet even they understood the unspoken rule: children ate first. Mothers and older siblings often sacrificed their portions so that little hands would be satisfied. In these simple rituals, sustenance and care became inseparable. Mock chicken legs were another invention born from necessity. Potatoes shaped and baked to resemble drumsticks, or breaded scraps, sometimes flavored with herbs if available, offered comfort in both taste and memory. These dishes were never meant to impress. They were practical, creative, and deeply human. Every meal told a story of survival, endurance, and quiet pride. The absence of meat also reshaped family dynamics. Conversations around the table were less about flavor and more about resilience. The smells, textures, and shared effort of transforming minimal ingredients into edible sustenance created lasting memories, etching the value of resourcefulness into the hearts of children. These meals, strange to modern eyes, reflect the reality of a time when scarcity dictated life. They carry lessons in patience, sacrifice, and adaptability. On America's Lost Recipes, remembering these meatless creations is more than nostalgia. It is a tribute to the families who endured, innovated, and kept their loved ones fed when survival itself depended on a single, humble plate. When sugar was the treat. During the Great Depression, sugar was a luxury, and sweets were rare treasures. Families who once indulged in pies and cakes found themselves turning to imagination, improvisation, and the smallest scraps of pantry ingredients. Desserts became symbols of hope, small comforts amid uncertainty, moments that reminded children and parents alike that joy could still exist, even in hard times. Vinegar pie, a dish that might seem strange today, became a household staple. A simple filling of vinegar, sugar, and flour was baked in a basic crust, creating a tart yet sweet reminder that sweetness did not always require abundance. Water pie followed a similar path, crafted with water, sugar, butter, and a touch of flour to simulate custard. Bread pudding transformed stale bread into a warm, nourishing treat, sometimes enhanced with raisins or a sprinkle of cinnamon if available. Every dessert carried intention: to feed, to comfort, and to sustain morale. These desserts were more than food. They reflected the resilience of mothers and grandmothers who worked tirelessly to provide small pleasures despite scarcity. A slice of vinegar pie or a spoonful of bread pudding became a quiet celebration at the end of the day, a moment to pause and savor what little abundance remained. Children remembered these sweets as symbols of love and care, proof that a family's devotion could transform even the plainest ingredients into magic. The ingenuity of Depression-era desserts left a lasting impression. They taught that sweetness could exist without plenty, that creativity mattered as much as flavor, and that love could be baked into even the simplest dishes. On America's Lost Recipes, these desserts remind us that even in the hardest years, families found ways to bring warmth, comfort, and hope to the table, one humble, precious treat at a time. Beans saved America. During the Great Depression, beans became more than a pantry staple. They became a lifeline. Families across America learned to stretch every ounce of protein they could find, and beans, humble yet versatile, answered that need. From navy beans to pinto beans, these simple legumes simmered in pots all day, releasing warmth and sustenance into kitchens that had known hunger too intimately. Bean soup, often simmered slowly with just water, a pinch of salt, and whatever scraps of vegetables were on hand, became a constant. It was modest but filling, comforting in both aroma and texture. Pinto beans paired with cornbread offered a complete meal for pennies, nourishing both body and spirit. Navy bean stew sometimes included leftover ham bones or a few herbs, transforming scarcity into a rich, savory meal that stretched across the week. Every family had its own version, a reflection of local availability and creativity, a personal imprint on an era defined by survival. These meals were never about elegance or presentation. They were about endurance. Mothers stirred pots patiently, letting the beans cook slowly, knowing that every simmered hour meant a fuller stomach and a calmer household. Fathers returned home tired and hungry, yet the aroma of simmering beans was a quiet reassurance that sustenance would be shared, even if it was simple. Children's laughter over a steaming bowl of beans and cornbread became one of the few small joys of these hard times. The impact of these humble dishes endured beyond the Depression. Beans taught families thrift, patience, and the quiet art of making do. They carried the memory of shared resilience, a reminder that survival was more than food. It was care, ingenuity, and quiet strength. On America's Lost Recipes, remembering these bean dishes honors the families who endured, fed each other with modest meals, and turned scarcity into sustenance, leaving a legacy that speaks far beyond the plate. Breakfast for dinner. During the Great Depression, kitchens learned to blur the lines between meals. When resources were scarce, breakfast foods often became dinner, offering familiarity and comfort at the end of a long, exhausting day. Simple dishes like milk toast and fried cornmeal were staples, inexpensive yet nourishing, providing warmth and reassurance in households defined by scarcity. Milk toast, a humble combination of bread soaked in thin, warmed milk, became a quiet ritual. Families served it at night to calm children and fill stomachs, offering a soft, gentle meal when heavier dishes were not possible. It was rarely seasoned with sugar or butter, yet its simplicity carried an unexpected comfort. Fried cornmeal, sometimes shaped into cakes or simply fried in small amounts of fat, offered another way to make a modest ingredient feel substantial. These dishes were practical, efficient, and deeply familiar, echoing traditions passed quietly from mother to daughter, from grandmother to grandchildren. What made breakfast for dinner meals so memorable was the emotion they carried. In homes where parents sacrificed their portions, children often ate first, creating moments of care and protection. The aroma of bread and milk simmering on the stove, or cornmeal sizzling in a pan, became intertwined with feelings of warmth, safety, and family devotion. Even the simplest food became a vessel for love, patience, and endurance. These meals shaped memories for generations. They taught that nourishment was about more than flavor. It was about presence, attention, and the quiet work of keeping loved ones alive during hard times. The traditions forged in these kitchens continued to echo long after the Depression ended, leaving a legacy of resilience and creativity. On America's Lost Recipes, these breakfast for dinner dishes remind us how families survived with ingenuity and care, turning modest ingredients into meals that carried warmth, comfort, and enduring love. Making do with scraps. During the Great Depression, nothing went to waste. Kitchens became laboratories of necessity, where scraps and leftovers transformed into meals that could stretch a family through days of uncertainty. Potato and onion hash, cabbage stew, and leftover loaves emerged from ingenuity and careful planning, each dish a quiet testament to resourcefulness in hard times. Potato and onion hash was simple yet filling. Leftover potatoes, diced and sautéed with onions, created a warm, savory dish that could accompany whatever protein was available or stand alone on the plate. Cabbage stew, simmered slowly with water, a small amount of fat, and whatever vegetables were on hand, became a hearty, inexpensive meal that fed multiple people with minimal ingredients. Leftover loaves, bread, meat scraps, or mashed potatoes pressed together and baked again, offered a surprising amount of sustenance, proving that even the smallest remnants could hold purpose. These dishes were about more than practicality. They reflected patience, care, and family devotion. Mothers taught children to appreciate the value of every scrap, to savor the resourcefulness required to survive. Fathers understood that these meals, humble as they were, carried the strength of a household determined to endure. Children grew up seeing creativity and necessity merge into nourishment, learning lessons that extended beyond the kitchen. The legacy of meals made from scraps is enduring. They teach thrift, ingenuity, and respect for resources. Each bite carries memories of sacrifice, perseverance, and love, reminding us that hardship often sparks resilience. On America's Lost Recipes, remembering these humble creations honors the families who thrived on what little they had. It is a tribute to survival, ingenuity, and the quiet strength that kept homes fed, hearts full, and hope alive during America's hardest years. The illusion of a feast. During the Great Depression, a large pot on the stove could create more than a meal. It could create hope. Hoover's stew and poor man's casseroles became symbols of ingenuity, turning scarce ingredients into dishes that looked abundant, even when nothing was plentiful. Families learned that presentation, even in the simplest form, could make a modest meal feel like a feast. Hoover's stew, often made from whatever protein, vegetables, or beans were available, simmered slowly in a large pot. The aroma filled the home, masking the thinness of the ingredients and offering reassurance that a complete meal was on the table. Poor man's casseroles followed a similar principle. Layers of bread, potatoes, or noodles, combined with small amounts of leftover meat or vegetables, created a hearty dish that stretched across the week. Both meals were practical, inexpensive, and, in their own way, comforting. What made these dishes extraordinary was the care with which they were prepared. Parents, aware of empty cupboards, arranged ingredients to appear generous. Children experienced a sense of abundance, even when portions were modest. Kitchens became spaces of quiet artistry, where the visual illusion of plenty met the practical need for survival. Every simmering pot carried patience, hope, and the desire to make meager resources feel sufficient. The legacy of these meals endures. They remind us that survival during hardship required more than ingredients. It required creativity, love, and thoughtfulness. Meals that looked like a feast often provided more than food. They provided reassurance, stability, and the illusion of normalcy. On America's Lost Recipes, remembering dishes like Hoover's stew and poor man's casseroles honors the families who endured, teaching us that even in scarcity, care and ingenuity could transform humble meals into moments of comfort and resilience. Meals for children. During the Great Depression, children's meals became a quiet priority. Even when cupboards were nearly empty, parents found ways to provide small comforts that nourished both body and spirit. Simple dishes like rice with cinnamon sugar or buttered bread with a touch of sugar offered more than sustenance. They provided a sense of care, normalcy, and protection in a world defined by scarcity. Rice with cinnamon sugar was humble but meaningful. Plain cooked rice, sprinkled lightly with sugar and cinnamon if it was available, became a sweet, comforting treat. It was often served after a long day of school or chores, a reminder that small pleasures could still exist. Buttered bread with sugar carried similar significance. A slice of bread, spread thinly with butter and topped with sugar, became a quiet indulgence, stretching the limited pantry into a gesture of love and reassurance. These meals reflected parents' devotion and creativity. Mothers often sacrificed their own portions, serving children first, ensuring their little hands were full. Fathers understood that the value of these simple dishes went far beyond flavor. They symbolized stability, protection, and care. In kitchens where scarcity ruled, the preparation of such meals became an act of resilience. Children learned early the importance of resourcefulness, savoring every bite with gratitude and understanding that these moments of sweetness were rare gifts. The legacy of these meals endures. They demonstrate that even in the harshest times, small gestures carried profound emotional weight. Simple ingredients, thoughtfully prepared, created memories that lasted a lifetime. On America's Lost Recipes, remembering these child-focused dishes honors the quiet heroism of families who nourished their children with what little they had, proving that love and care could make even modest meals feel abundant, comforting, and enduring. Survival that became tradition. As the Great Depression wore on, some meals became more than a necessity, they became tradition. Families discovered dishes that could feed the household reliably, nourish the body, and provide a sense of continuity amid uncertainty. Cornbread and milk, hot water cornbread, and similar simple recipes became staples, passed quietly from one generation to the next. Cornbread and milk was modest but reliable. A slice of cornbread, paired with warm milk, provided sustenance at any hour of the day. Hot water cornbread, made with minimal ingredients and cooked quickly on a griddle, became a practical solution for families with little fuel, little time, and few resources. These meals were straightforward, inexpensive, and deeply familiar, creating a sense of stability when the world outside felt unstable. What made these dishes remarkable was their ability to endure. They were never flashy, never indulgent, but they became part of the rhythm of daily life. Parents relied on them to keep children fed, full, and calm. Kitchens echoed with the soft smells of cornmeal cooking, a small comfort in a time of great hardship. Children grew up associating these simple foods with warmth, safety, and family. The legacy of these survival meals extends far beyond the Depression. They remind us that ordinary ingredients, prepared thoughtfully, can carry extraordinary meaning. They reflect patience, ingenuity, and quiet devotion, showing how families turned scarcity into sustenance, hardship into resilience, and necessity into tradition. On America's Lost Recipes, honoring these meals is more than nostalgia. It is a tribute to the courage, resourcefulness, and enduring love of families who survived when survival itself required creativity, patience, and the simplest of ingredients. These humble dishes remain a lasting symbol of endurance and care across generations.